So watching him sort of in our limited interaction and scenes together, it was really cool to see him juggle that and how he was able to go in and out of like putting on the director hat and then being Ryle and then having to divorce himself from, seeing maybe Lily and Atlas have a bunch of chemistry and having to take himself out of being Ryle and being the director. And I was like, man, that must be such a head trip to have to be like, wait, why are they having such a nice
Hey
time together?
friends, I found a new judge that I really like. I wish this one worked in New York. This judge, who is based in California, doesn't seem to be very impressed with Blake Lively. Recently, the judge made a decision in a federal court about a legal request that Blake had filed. She wanted several third parties connected to Wayfair, including people like Tara Hanks, a health coach who gave her probiotics after lots of antibiotics to hand. Over documents, Blake filed a motion asking for the case to be moved back to federal court in New York, even though a judge there had already said he didn't have the right to handle it. She wanted the court in New York to force those parties to give her the documents. But the California judge didn't agree to that at all. Instead of holding a hearing, this judge simply reviewed both sides' written arguments. He explained that Blake was trying to make 8 people comply with subpoenas in cases already being handled in New York. But since those 8 people either live or work in California, the rules say that any legal request like this has to be handled where they are located. So, if Blake wanted to force them to turn over the documents, she had to do that in California, not New York. Blake also told the court that nobody was objecting to the documents she requested. In fact, the only issue raised by those people was where the case should be handled, not what was being asked for or whether it was allowed. She also admitted that the parties had agreed to provide the requested documents, the judge pointed out. That the people involved had already been working on turning over the materials, and they planned to have everything done by July 1st, 2025. That means there really wasn't any major disagreement. Blake just didn't like how slow the process was going. She wanted the court to make them hurry up and give her everything within 10 days. But they had already said they'd try to finish by June 27th, or no later than July 1st. The judge clearly saw through what she was doing. He pointed out that this wasn't a real conflict that needed a judge to step in. Since the parties were already cooperating and had a clear deadline, the judge said her motion to speed things up wasn't necessary. He denied the request to rush the process, but did say that people must still finish by July 1st as promised. Basically, act. The judge told Blake that just because she's impatient doesn't mean the court has to act. She was pushing hard for immediate results, but the others had been cooperating and working within a fair timeline. The judge also noted that nothing in his order prevents everyone from working together after July 1st if needed. Still, he made it clear the documents must be handed over by that date. This whole thing likely cost thousands of dollars and may not have been worth it at all. The lawyers involved in this case are likely representing several different people. That means every motion or filing leads to more hours worked, which adds up quickly. If the attorneys are charging anywhere between $1,500 to $2,500 an hour, a single motion to compel could cost Wayfair parties somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000. That's why every time Blake Lively files one of these motions, it creates a huge financial burden for the other side. Wayfair has to spend time and money responding to these filings if they're unnecessary. Sure, I'm just relieved the judge saw through what she was trying to do and made his decision quickly. He didn't fall for any of it. Honestly, I wish this Judge Steve Kim could take over the whole case, even the parts in New York. I think he's doing a much better job than Judge Lyman. After my last video, which focused on a subpoena sent to Vanzan Inc., we now know that Jen Al is pushing hard for documents from Vanzan. She wants information about the company's internal structure, such as who the shareholders are and how it's organized. Her goal is to prove that Vanzan is just a shell company linked to Blake and Ryan, and has no real connection to Jones' works. She believes this proves the whole case is a fake setup, and she's also asking for all communication between Jones and Jones' works. Jen wants to understand whether these records were handed over because of the subpoena, or before it was even issued. Blake Lively's team responded, and their reply was actually kind of funny. They used to represent Vanzan Inc., and they told the judge in a formal letter that Jen's motion was misleading. According to them, Jen already had all the documents she was asking for, including the subpoena and the material that came with it. They say she's had this information since at least May 16, 2025. They even included a copy of the subpoena and the documents as exhibit. There are several related lawsuits happening at the same time. There's one where Blake is suing Wayfair, another where Wayfair is suing Blake, and a third one with Jones Works involved. One of those cases was dismissed and hasn't been brought back. All of them are under a protective order, which means certain documents can't be freely shared between cases. The May 16th letter Blake's team included states that she's giving the documents for use in her case, only not in other cases. She received these files from Jones Works, but some were missing attachments and metadata. That's important because metadata shows things like when a document was created or edited, and it was part of the rules they all agreed on. Blake's side says they are following those rules. But the document simply didn't come with metadata, and that's not their fault. Also, because of the protective order, these documents can only be used in the specific lawsuit they were shared. Jen can't just take that same subpoena and use it in the Jones Works case, since that would break the rules. The information can't be shared across different lawsuits without special permission. There's a real issue here. If Blake's team gave the documents without some required technical details and then said they can't be used outside the current case, it could create confusion or even legal complications, even though Jen Al has received some documents. She says she's missing a key item, the actual subpoena related to the case. LNGOP, another party involved, agrees they've received some materials. But Jen says she doesn't have the original subpoena, which could explain a lot. It's possible that the subpoena was marked confidential, which means it can't be used outside the current case. And that would be a problem if Jen is trying to use it in a different action. Also, Jen points out that Blake Lively didn't include any emails or communications between her and Jones Works. There's also no information about Vanzan Inc.'s structure or ownership in what was handed over. What Jen really needs is proof of who owns Vanzan Inc., who the shareholders are, how they're connected to Blake or Ryan. If there's no connection to Jones Works or Stephanie Jones, it could help Jen argue that the lawsuit was staged from the start. She believes it's all fake, and she wants to back that up with real evidence. But the problem is, the documents she did get are missing metadata, which is a big issue. Metadata helps prove whether a document is real. It tells you when it was created, who made it, and if anything was changed. Without that information, the files could be challenged in court. Someone could claim they were edited or faked. For instance, if Blake got documents in August before any subpoena was officially sent, that's a major concern. It could mean she received information illegally or outside the proper process. The metadata would show whether the documents were pulled from a phone in October when a subpoena would be valid or earlier in August, which would raise suspicions. If there's no metadata or it was deleted, it could look like someone was trying to hide when the disclosure really happened. That's a serious problem because removing metadata or changing it could be seen as tampering or destroying evidence. He's also trying to figure out if Blake got these documents legally or not. Blake's team says they received them this way and it's not their fault. If metadata is missing, it's Jones Works' responsibility. But if any of the evidence was faked, changed, or even just incomplete, it affects the entire case. The court's rules require metadata, and using documents without it could lead to them being thrown out. Meanwhile, Blake is acting like everything was done properly. But she's also telling Jen she can't share these documents with other cases due to confidentiality rules. So, Jen might have seen the information, but she can't officially use it in her own case unless it's properly shared. That leaves Jen stuck. She still needs those documents for her case, but she can't get them unless Blake or Vanzan Inc. gives permission. Lastly, in a separate but connected case, Judge Lyman is reviewing whether Jed Wallace should be removed from the lawsuit due to lack of legal authority. If that happens, a major part of Blake's case could fall apart. The pressure is on all sides, and it's turning into a complicated and messy legal battle. It's filled with missing documents, potential evidence problems, and arguments over who really has access to what. In a surprising new development, the judge issued a very specific order. He told Blake Lively that she is allowed to submit a letter no longer than to single-spaced pages. By July 2, 2025, the letter must only respond to one point raised by Jed Wallace and his company, Street Relations. Their claim is that Blake never named anyone in her lawsuit who actually did something illegal while physically in New York, something that could connect Wallace to the case under the law she's using, specifically Section 302A2 of New York's long-arm statute. Wallace and his team originally argued that the court doesn't have the right to handle the case against them because they have no connection to New York. They briefly mentioned this point earlier, but it wasn't a major part of their initial argument. Now, in their reply, they're putting more focus on it. The judge is allowing Lively a chance to respond directly to that new focus with her short letter. Then, Wallace and his legal team will get to send their own short letter in response. The core of Wallace's defense is simple. He was never in New York. He says he never did anything there that could tie him to the state. Blake's lawsuit, on the other hand, is based on things that allegedly happened across many different places: New Jersey, California, Texas, and more. Yet she filed her case in New York, the state she lives in. That's why she's trying to claim diversity jurisdiction, which means the people involved are from different states. So the federal court in New York should be able to hear the case. But when someone like Wallace says, "I don't belong in this case, it's her job to prove why he does," that means she must show that someone involved in the alleged conspiracy did something in New York that can legally be tied back to Wallace. That's going to be extremely hard for her. Most of the people she named, Belen, Heath, Nathan, and Jen Ayler, all located in California. All of Wallace's communication was with Nathan, who was working in California at the time. Wallace himself was in Texas, and none of the interactions involved New York directly. Even Wayfair, the company involved in all of this, is based in California. So now the judge is giving Lively a chance to present evidence that something happened in New York. But if she can't, Wallace will likely be removed from the case. If that happens, it's a serious blow to her lawsuit. Wallace is accused of leading the online smear campaign against her, the one involving fake accounts and coordinated attacks. If he's taken out of the case, the foundation of her entire argument collapses. From the tone of the judge's order, it seems like he's genuinely weighing the motion to dismiss. He may even be trying to find a reason to move the case out of his courtroom altogether. That's just speculation, but it's clear that this part of the case is in serious trouble. If you've been following this closely, let me know what you think. Are you surprised this might fall apart? Let me know in the comments. Hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. See you next time.